Durability is the fourth frontier of marathon performance. We all talk about VO2 max, lactate threshold, and running economy, and they all matter. But the thing that actually gets you from 20 miles to the finish at goal pace is something we call durability, also known as fatigue resistance. And this is how well your body holds pace and form as that fatigue starts to stack up. Now that's the useful bit. It's not a fancy metric, it's not a gadget setting, just the ability to keep doing the work when the work starts to bite back. Now why does this matter? Because most marathons are lost in the final 10 to 12k, they're not won in the first 10. If you've ever felt smooth through halfway and then watched the wheels slowly fall off, that is durability calling your bluff. It's not only about the fitness in your legs, it's about how you actually can absorb those thousands upon thousands of ground contacts, how your tendons, like the Achilles tendon, the plantar fasciitis or the plantar tendons, how they return energy, how your hips and calves keep doing those little stabilizing jobs when your brain is screaming for those shortcuts. Pacing depends on this. It depends on durability. Running economy, it depends on durability. Even a well-trained threshold is useless if your stride starts to fall apart under the load. Here's my stance up front. Volume is always going to be our biggest hammer within reason. Get the total work in consistently, mostly easy with the specific work for the race that you're doing, and then use force multipliers to build durability. Hills, strength, that's the important one. Tempo, no hype, no magic workouts, just the right stuff alongside your recovery. So let's make it practical. First, a working definition that you can use. Durability is the ability to maintain goal pace with minimal drift in heart rate, minimal drift in mechanics, and that mental control as the fatigue accumulates. If you wear a watch, you're looking to reduce something that we call decoupling. This is how much your heart rate rises for the same pace, particularly on long runs. If you don't, you are just going to be judging by feel and form. Do your feet still land underneath you? Does your cadence stay tidy? Can you push off without your calves cramping or your knees collapsing in? What builds it best for a marathoner with a busy schedule is repeated submaximal exposure to marathon-specific stress, plus general strength for the engine bay, if you want to call it that, posterior chain, your calves, your hips, your glutes, plus some smart hill work to develop the stiffness and eccentric tolerance, and enough tempo work to improve economy at the speeds that matter. Everything plugs into those pillars. So I'm going to give you some concrete sessions that you can actually use straight away. Number one, long run alternations at marathon effort. So pick a long run day. After a decent, easy first hour, you can then start to alternate blocks at marathon effort with easier running. If you're a beginner to this format, something like 5 minutes on, 10 minutes off is a pretty good place to start. You could then progress to something like 10 minutes on, 10 minutes off. And once you start to get really confident, you can then start to do even longer efforts at marathon effort and reduce the amount of float time. So, peak specific phase, for example, could be something like 30 minutes at marathon effort with 10 to 15 minutes easy in between. Keep that marathon effort honest. On a flat route with stable wind, it should feel like you could do it for at least a couple of hours on a good day, because you're probably going to need to be doing that during the actual race itself, right? If you're data inclined, target roughly your current marathon pace, not your dream pace, your current marathon pace. Fuel, as in race rehearsal, 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrate per hour. That's a gel roughly every 20 to 30 minutes. And then you are going to be thinking about your sodium intake and fluid intake as well. It's actually been shown higher carbohydrate intake during those long runs is going to improve your later run performance and reduce that perceived exertion in your events. It's also going to help with recovery too. Another session that I love to give my runners and that I do myself are intervals into tempo. I call them durability builders. So what you do is you do the hard, fast work first, like some intervals, and then you settle into a period of steady running. It is a brilliant way to practice running under fatigue. So an example could be something like 8 by 90 seconds hard at like 10k effort with 60 seconds jog in between. Then you do 3 to 5 minutes, and then you go into something like 10 to 15 minutes worth of half marathon effort. Another example could be 6 by 3 minutes at 10 to half marathon, 10k to half marathon effort, 90 seconds jog in between, and then you have 3 to 5 minutes of easy running followed by 20 to 30 minutes at marathon effort. You get the picture. It is a period of harder intervals, a short rest period, then you go into a period of tempo, marathon effort type running. And what we're doing in those intervals initially is we are tiring the legs out. We're hitting it with that neuromuscular impact, with that neuromuscular implementation. Then whilst those legs are feeling a little bit fatigued from the run, you then go into that period of a longer period of tempo running. It's going to be hard, and that is the point. It really helps build resistance. I know another one that you can do, because it builds running specific strength, is hill strength circuits. So find yourself a moderate gradient, 4 to 6%, up to 8% if possible, ideally on tarmac or firm trail. Start with something like 10 by 60 seconds uphill at a very strong but controlled effort. Jog or walk back down for recovery if you need to. And then what you can do after that is add a flat runoff. After that final rep, run for 10 minutes steady on the flat to transfer that strength into being able to deal with the fatigue that you've built up in the session into that tempo flat section. And you can progress from there, 12 to 15 reps and then 15 to 20 minutes steady on the flat. Another variation you can do is something like 6 by 2 minutes uphill at sort of threshold effort, jog back, and then you could do something like 6 to 10 minutes at marathon effort. Do that twice. That's a really good circuit to do. Keep your chest tall, drive the knee a touch, but focus on that ankle stiffness and pushing the ground away through the hips and down through the legs. It has been shown that hill-focused work does improve running economy modestly, but it does do it by increasing that muscle and tendon stiffness and force production. Now, one thing you might want to be thinking about, particularly if you're doing something like Boston, is downhill tolerance, or eccentric durability. For something like Boston, where it's downhill, that downhill tolerance will protect your quads late in the race. We see this a lot in the ultra world. So on a gentle -3 to 5% descent, you could do something like 6 by 2 minutes at controlled downhill marathon to half marathon effort. So it's pretty hard. It will hurt a little bit. And what you might find in the day or two afterwards, maybe even 3 or 4 days, is that your quads are quite sore. If you have knee issues, you might want to think about not doing this. But you want to stay smooth, don't sprint. It's about teaching your quads to absorb that force. Don't do it too often. Do it every other week in the final part of your marathon build-up. The evidence shows that eccentric, that repeated bout effect really transfers well into protecting your quads come race day. Okay, now the big one, and this is where the studies have really shown where durability comes from, and that is strength training. Strength training really helps you as a marathoner. Now, you don't need a bodybuilding plan. You don't need something like, a push-pull legs day, nothing like that. Keep it simple. 2 sessions per week, 30 to 40 minutes at the most. Keep your repetitions low, your rest periods generous, your technique clean, and make sure you are lifting heavy. So here's a little session that you could go away with. A bit more lower body focused, but start off with a good warm up and then back squats. Something like 3 sets of 5 where you are lifting just enough so that you could only do 1 to 3 more in the set. So if you lift 5 and you feel like you could do 10 more, then you're too light. If you are supposed to do 5 and you only make it to 4 and you can't do any more, then it's a bit too heavy. And that is the same for all of these. That is the same for all of these exercises I'm going to give you in this session. So yeah, your back squats 3 by 5 at a weight you could lift for, like I said, 3 to 7 reps, but you're only going to do 5. Something like a Romanian deadlift. 3 by 5 to 6, again at an RPE of 7 to 8. Split squats or step-ups are really good. 2-3 sets of 6 to 8 per leg. Nice steady tempo. Heavy calf raises, really protect those, that lower part of the leg. Something like 3 by 10 to 12. You can do more repetitions, again with the same focus on being able to only do 1 to 3 more repetitions. And then an optional one, because the upper body is very important too, you could do something like barbell rows. Second session you could do in the week. This is a bit more power focus. I love doing power work. You could do something like a barbell squat jump. Not something to be doing if you're a beginner to it, but a barbell squat jump can be great. Something like a leg press using the single leg. Seated calf raises. What this does, by bending your knee, you actually focus more on the soleus muscle rather than the gastrocnemius, which is what you'll focus on by doing stood up, by doing stood straight leg calf raises. And then you can do something like a short plyometric block. A few squat jumps, hops, bounds, that kind of stuff, but keep that plyometric volume low. We already get quite a lot of plyometric work from actually running itself. The thing with strength work is that the progression is boring by design. You shouldn't be changing your strength work every 2 or 3 weeks. You actually need to be having a block of time where you are pretty much doing the same movements over and over and over, sometimes 6 to 12 weeks. The goal isn't to be getting sore legs. It isn't to feel like you've done this massive workout. It's to get stronger so that you are using less energy at the same pace. And this will help build that durability that we're talking about in the marathon. So there's a very recent study where this concept of durability and strength work has really shown us that, for years, us runners, we don't want to do the strength work, but it is so important. And this study that's recently come out that kind of shows us that it is very, very important was done by the University of Loughborough. The results were just unarguable, really. So get your strength work in. Now, all of this I've talked about, where does this all fit in a week? So let's assume a solid marathon build with 6 days running. One of my coaching principles and training principles is using the easy, hard, easy rhythm. I never stack 2 truly hard days back to back. Keep Monday is a great day, I think, as a bit of a break if life is busy. I'd like Mondays because that's usually the first day of the working week. And you can just focus on that. Don't worry too much about your training. Just focus on getting your emails done, getting the working week off to a good start. And then there's no excuse for the rest of the week because you're on top of things by Monday. So Monday off. Tuesday, what I would be doing on a Tuesday is usually the interval work, the harder work, and I would ideally want to be doing then, later on in the day, your strength session, your first strength session of the week. Wednesday, keep that easy. You can go a little bit longer on a Wednesday, something 60 to 90 minutes, as long as it is kept very, very easy. Thursday, easy again, but with some strides chucked in at the end of your run, 5 to 6 strides, and maybe some short plyos as well, but only if you're feeling fresh. Friday, that would probably be the second strength session I would give, alongside another harder session, something like hill reps, or probably something more like a tempo type run. Saturday, that is easy, optional, chuck in some 10-second hill sprints or 20-second strides. And then Sunday, that is going to be your long run. Outside of the actual specific marathon block, what I would do is switch your Friday session, keep that easy. And as you start to do things like just instead of long, easy runs, and you start doing long marathon specific runs where you do some of those alternations that I talked about, where you're running, 1 mile on, 1 mile off, or 10 minutes or whatever it might be. That is the way I would structure your week. You can rotate that key stimuli. 1 week you could do those long alternations. The next week you could go back to doing hills and keep your long run nice and easy, but keep that backbone. Tuesday session, Wednesday, Thursday easy, Friday session, Saturday easy, and then Sunday long run. There's obviously the case to be able to swap things around depending on your schedule, and then your strength sessions, keep them ideally on your hard days, because then you want the rest the following day. So there you go. You have got plenty to build durability if you hit everything consistently, barring the odd miss here and there. Life happens, right? Fuel the work and you will build that durability. Now, here are some common mistakes that people do make and some of those easy fixes. Treating marathon pace as a speed session and hammering it from week 1. No, we need to be building to marathon effort volume over a period of time. Depending on where your fitness is, that could be 12 weeks, it could be 16 weeks, it could be 20. Start with those shorter blocks or floats and save those long alternations for the last 6-ish weeks of your training. Mistake number 2, too many hard elements in 1 week. I spoke to somebody the other day who was doing intervals, then tempo, then hills, then another tempo, then a long run, all in the space of 5 days. And he was wondering why he was knackered and hurting everywhere. Just keep it to the kind of structure that I've given you. We need plenty of that easy running. Mistake number 3, easy days that drift too fast. Oh my God, 80, 90, 99% of people I speak to are doing their easy days too hard. We need that easy. Put your ego away on those easier days, those recovery days. Keep it truly easy, conversational. If your heart rate and breathing rise for the same pace on an easy day, then you're not absorbing the work. Mistake number, whatever we're on, lifting like a bodybuilder, or thinking that if you haven't got DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, then you're not doing enough strength work. No, low reps, high intent, long rest periods. We're talking 2 to 3 minutes at least in between lifts. If your strength session makes your speed work or your other days feel really hard, then it's badly placed and you're not doing it right. Another mistake I see is ignoring calves and feet. Heavy straight knee and bent knee calf work, pogo hops, skipping. Your Achilles is free energy. It is going to help you in your marathon. So really focus on doing that stuff too. Another mistake that I see in marathon training, not so much in the ultra world, but it is missing out on downhill work. Now, you don't need loads of it at all. In fact, studies show us that we only need a couple of bouts of it to get the benefits. So downhill reps every couple of weeks for the final 4 weeks of your marathon block is going to help protect your quads come race day. Another mistake, that I want to bring up is under fueling. Saying, "Oh, I'll save my calories. I don't want to take too much." You need to be practicing fueling like it is race day. Your gut is trainable. More carbohydrates in long runs correlate with better performance in race day, and you're going to recover better. So make sure you are fueling properly. Another one I've just thought of, chasing those shiny sessions. You saw Eliud Kipchoge do it on Strava or whatever. Keep structure. Don't think about any one particular session as being some hero workout, because they don't exist. And that also goes for your long run. If there is the most common question I get asked, bar none, is what is the longest long run I'll do in my training? Your long run, whilst they are important, the distance of your longest long run is insignificant amongst all of the many miles and hours that you will do in a training block. I have coached people to marathon success, and I'm talking like real success, massive PBs. I had one lady who was the second fastest V60 in the UK, and the longest long run we did with her was 14.5 miles. So don't focus too much on your long runs. Okay, how to progress the whole block without totally cooking yourself. A good place to think is sort of 4 to 6 week waves. Gradually add a little bit of time at your marathon efforts, or on a rep or two, a rep or two on the hills, a little bit of extra time on the tempo block. And then when you just start feeling that fatigue, which is usually around week 4, 5, 6, bring your volume down. It's called a cutback week. Super important to do this. This is where you're able to get a little bit of that extra recovery and therefore adapt, absorb that training that you've just done. Fatigue is great. We talk about recovery all the time, but without fatigue, you can't have recovery, and therefore you can't have adaptation. So there was lots in there, but let's give you one practical next step. Pick one of those kind of durability builders, either the long run alternations or the marathon pace floats, or if you're a bit shorter on time, you can do something like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of warm up, 8 by 90 seconds, followed by 10, 12 minutes of tempo with a cool down. Pick one of those, go out and do it in the next few weeks and see how you get on. How does then the next race that you do, or the next long run that you do, how does that feel in terms of your ability to hold pace? Do you feel stronger? And don't forget, one of the key things, as science has shown us, is getting in the weight room. Get and do your strength training, because that is going to give you that durability for your next race. And what else is going to give you durability for your next race is if you are needing some help, why don't you get in touch with me, and either myself or one of my crack team of coaches can help you with your marathon training and turning you into a durability monster. So check out the link below and drop us an inquiry and talk to one of my team. And I'll see you in the next video.